What brings you to India this time?
India is one of our largest growth markets. I try to get out here regularly. Obviously, with the massive focus on the rest of the world as well, since 2 years ago, I haven't been coming as much as before. But India is a very big growth market for us. So I'm here just supporting our growth initiatives with customers, with governments, and had a few very good meetings today, and I'm very pleased to see that the difficulties and the headwinds of 2013, people are seeing some relief about that.
Since you take care of the high growth regions,
Of course.
And most of the developing economies, if I could remember, are going into elections.
Yes.
And
Yes.
since we are democracy, election matters a lot.
Yeah, I do think also in India, we've had maybe a few years of both a perception and a reality of things not moving fast and not executing well. And that's beginning to affect, it has already affected the global corporate psyche. Okay, well, thank God for a company like us. We are long-term viewers of a country like India. Our chairman has been, the co-chair of the U.S.-India CEO Forum. We have 12,000 people here. We don't look at it as, okay, it's sneezing now, maybe it's got a bad cold, let's go somewhere else. We've never left India. We've never de-emphasized it. We've never not continued seed planting. But we are the exception. We're not the rule. If you just look at what's happened to FDI in India, compare that to what's happened to FDI in other places like even Brazil, that doesn't have anywhere near the growth of India. But all of a sudden, so these kinds of things are not mathematical equations. They're very emotional. And I'd say India has paid has paid a price in the past three or 4 years, especially past 3 years, of the perception has become that it's not a place that is executing fast. So you won't get the return. It's slow, it's bureaucratic. That needs to change.
So what is the expectation in global corporate circle from this election?
Well, I think everybody, over the long term, everybody says, okay, India is a big economy, lots of people moving, talented people. But I think people like to see here and now some action that we can execute on, infrastructure, execute on contracts, government contracts, execute on just moving the thing forward. There's just so much hanging in the balance. And then I think you will see capital would be reallocated again. Infrastructure needs to improve before more manufacturing capital goes into place. Projects need to be executed and awarded and executed, and major decisions need to be made. So I think that's the expectation. Everybody wants it to work. Nobody's against it.
Yeah. I'd just like Shane to also comment a little bit on the same two questions that you asked in terms of perception about India and the way investments are coming, vis-a-vis specific to Honeywell, because I think Shane's answering a lot more from the macro point of view.
Yes.
But the Honeywell experience over the last 3 or 4 years.
We grew more than 20% last year in a really bad year, right? And the reason for it is severalfold. One is that our portfolio, great positions in good industries, it really even plays better in India. In fact, I sometimes joke with our chairman, say, it's really great positions in great industries. You can't have great of everything, but really in high growth regions we do. Because if you think about it, energy efficiency, safety, security, aerospace, auto, these are all great industries for countries like India, for China, for Indonesia, because these are rapidly urbanizing, rapidly moving economies that are rising the standards of living. What are they doing? These are the stuff that they're working on. So for us, that's been good. Our tenure has been good here. And the fact that we are so much more local in India than almost anywhere else in the world.
Since you're in charge of emerging markets.
Yes.
And you may be seeing such kind of trends everywhere. I mean, we have seen unrest in the Middle East.
And democracies have largely become way too slow. And I'm not a proponent of a different system, but if you just look at America, we are probably at one of our lowest points in confidence of people in the government. And probably the government is trying to do as good a job as it possibly can. There are no malice or forethought. They're not people sitting there and saying, well, let's create havoc for each other. But for one reason or another, they're not executing. We've become a polarized place where, most critical things have become polarized issues. That's not a way for good government to engender confidence in people. So American people don't have confidence in that. They want change in that area. In Europe, it's a basket case. If you look at European economies, basically they can't get out of their own way. I really think, I know I'm going to create a lot of trouble for myself for saying this. I really think one of the non-developing countries and backwardly developing countries in the world in the future is going to be France. I think it's going to become a third world nation in a few decades. Because the expectation of entitlements is this big, the input into what they're going to do is this big, and there's nothing else they want to do, and it's kind of like a morass. And they're up against who? Up against China, India, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, who are willing to get up and educate their people and work hard and get things done. So Europe is in a bad shape. India has not executed as well as it can in the past few years, but it has had a good history of 10 years of good run. So it can really do that. It's not distant memory. It's in the memory of everybody in India. You just walk in the streets, everybody remembers, we had a decent run. So I think it can go back.
How different is China from all these?
I think China is the outlier. You can't, by any standard you look at it, for 30 years, they've really executed. Now, they're paying a price for it, right? The Delhi air, this would be an R&R trip for a Chinese, right? The air pollution, the traffic, the safety, not of physical safety of people, but food safety. The H1N1, other things that are issues. If you look at you ask an average Chinese, the 5 or 6, 7 concerns of an average Chinese, none of them are concerns of an American. They're worried about my child's education, my safety, my food safety, air pollution, all of this, the government corruption. So they've paid a price. But having said that, and they're addressing it, the Xi Jinping government is beginning to address it, but having said that, they've executed like no one else in terms of building the infrastructure, building the talent base, building the supply chain, both for manufacturing and now for services. People forget China's software industry is incredibly huge, but not as an outsourcing industry, but as its own software industry. China's e-commerce now is bigger than the US in many ways, and it's going to become much bigger than many economies in the world. So they've executed phenomenally well. Will it be complete good execution going forward? I think it's going to be harder and harder because they're becoming a big economy. But they do have the quote-unquote benefit of a little bit more of an autocratic approach to it.